Hello, welcome. My name is Natasha and this video is going to be just a little bit of information about how I sequence a class currently. This does continuously evolve and change, and there are things that stay, but as we evolve and grow and change, so do and does what we share. But currently, and this would be perhaps more of a vinyasa kind of flow of a class, maybe hatha as well. I can and do use it if I'm going from a flow vinyasa or a hatha of some kind to a yin practice too. So it can work for that as well. Essentially what you want to figure out to begin is the intention behind the class, or the energy that you're sharing, or if it will be a specific pose that you're building up to, because that all plays a massive part in what poses and parts of the body and those types of things that you're going to be thinking about as you're sequencing. So yeah, intention or energy or pose or even a specific body part. Get that down first. Then I will start in a grounding position. So that could be in a seat. Mostly that's where I gravitate towards, but whatever you feel matches what your intention is with the practice. It could be child's pose, it could even be laying down if it's a nice beautiful evening class. Just get everyone to just or yeah, seated, laying, child's pose, standing as well is a beautiful way to start, again depending on the energy you're wanting to share and cultivate. And then I would move into just a centering breath, so just inhaling and exhaling mostly to begin with, just deep breaths, just getting the energy flowing up the spine and getting the student into their natural cycle and rhythm of breath, maybe releasing some of what's being held, and softening and just coming into a center with their breath and their flow of breath. Then I would move into a breathing technique and a pranayama practice. There are many, and you would come back to the intention behind the class and what you were trying to cultivate, because breath has so much power and you would really want that to match what you were sharing. So a breathing technique, maybe something that you pranayama practice, maybe something that you would gravitate towards. I then will go into a few warm-ups for the body itself, and that would match what I was building up to, or the part of the body that I was working with. Something mostly grounded, depending on where you've started the practice too. So just something that is, the intensity isn't too high, mostly for everybody, and giving lots of options there too, and opening a connection to the body, a space for that. After the maybe 3 or 5 warm-ups, you'd go into your sun salutation. Maybe this is something that you implement, into a sun salutation. So you start working on the right side of the body mostly, and the poses with that would again be probably scaled down from what you're building up to. So you're starting to think about how I can gently and easily open the body up for what's to come. So you do those poses, a sequence of sun salutation for the right side. You perhaps offer a little vinyasa sort of integrator before you go to the left, which is your chaturanga and your cobra and your back to downward facing dog, or however you were moving from the right side to the left side. You'd probably do a sun salutation maybe 2 or 3 times, depending on how long the class is. Then you would move into your sun salutation B, and that would be basically the poses that you've just explored in A, but intense isn't the right word, but they're built up and you've opened the body for them, and it kind of makes you want it to make sense. What you've done all throughout the class so far has been building up to the body either opening a little bit more for this or strengthening for what's occurring in your sun salutation B. And again, you're working with your right side, then your left side, and before you transition from your right to your left, you're offering a vinyasa flow to tie it all together in between. In your sun salutation B, you could offer chaturanga coming into upward facing dog, something a little bit more intense, and yeah, back to your downward facing dog or whatever you're using to switch sides. You'd probably explore that as well, maybe 2 or 3 times, depending on how long the class is. And after you've explored that, you could even incorporate your peak poses into that sequencing too. So your peak pose doesn't necessarily need to be as a completion of or after that salutation B. It can be the final pose in the sequencing of 2 or 3 poses that was your sun salutation B. Or you can completely finish your sun sal B and move into the peak pose. After the peak pose, you're wanting to offer a counter that either counters what you just did or cools the body down from what you just did, allows the body to reset from whatever it was that you shared. After your peak pose, after your counter or your cool down, you would most likely then explore a couple more surrender, cool down type of poses. And this is where the yin, half yin can come in, if that's a style that you are teaching and offering too. You would obviously shorten the sun sal A's and B's, not do as many of them, because usually you're working with an hour, so you'd probably do 1 sun sal A and 2 or 3 sun sal B's. So coming back to the cool down or going into more in-depth yin poses, that would be held for a longer amount of time, or just cool down poses that are held for a few breaths. Then of course, after all of that, you would come into a shavasana or a meditation of some kind, a deep relaxation, an opportunity for the students to mostly laying, some prefer sitting, legs up the wall, or just a deep relaxation to just integrate the whole practice. You would want that to be a minimum of 5 minutes, 10 minutes, even better. If it's a personal practice and not in a class time, you may have explored even longer, which is even better. But yeah, class times, not perhaps offering that opportunity. But yeah, minimum of 5 minutes for that. Then in a gentle way, bringing students back to their senses. Firstly, I work with the breath, then sometimes we'll go into senses itself of the physical body, of their hearing sense, of their smelling, tasting senses. Just bringing everything back, awareness back to here and now, present moment, before I gently brought them into a seat to finish off the practice and to recognize the deep practice, to recognize the honoring of self and body, and to send love and gratitude and appreciation to showing up, because it's not always easy for a whole range of reasons. I think that's about it. if you have any questions, any comments, would like to share this video, like this video, I would love to interact with you. I would love to answer your questions and help you further along on your journey. So once again, thank you for being here and listening to me. I hope you have gotten something from this, and have a beautiful rest of your day, evening, whatever time it is, wherever you are listening to this. Namaste.